Uh, Hi, for the today's YouTube video, we are going to discuss about uh, Spring Struts Hibernate Java project. It is the integration of the Struts, Spring and Hibernate along with the Java project. Most of the enterprise editions, Java enterprise editions applications were designed using this tech stack. Most of the banking applications or healthcare application, whatever you take, those applications are built using these technologies like Spring, Struts, Hibernate and Java. So I want to explain these things because it would be very little bit complex if you do not understand the concept, how the application flows, how it will happen, because without knowing these details, the basic project structure and how it will work and how it flows, it would be very difficult for you. It makes your mind unclutter and it will be a chaos for you. So I just want to explain you this tech stack in integration, how the flow works. Here you can see here we are going to create employee app. We are supposed to take banking application. For now, for simplicity, we are taking a employee app. You can see here we created a under SRC. There are some packages com.app.action. This action package will contain all the action classes. I'll explain you what is the action class, and service class is there, service IMPL classes, DAO classes is there, and DAO IMPL model classes. Under web content we will have all the JSPs. Under WebINF we will have deployment descriptor file, strut config XML file, Spring application context file, and a Hibernate config file. So these are the main configuration files here. So I'll explain how struts will work. The struts will generally used to map the input-output request to the data, flow. I'll tell you, you can see here, whenever request is coming, it will map to corresponding action classes. So that part is handled by the struts only. It will not have any, it will not do anything like Spring, but it would just map the flow of request to the corresponding action class and response to the corresponding JSPs. So that is the responsibility of the struts. You can see here the struts config file. What we are doing, whenever the login path is invoked, the login URI is invoked, it will map the corresponding request to the login action class, and it will map the success response to the home.jsp. If it is error, again it will redirect back to login page. You can see there is a /add employee. If the action it is coming like add employee, then it will map the corresponding action class. The corresponding action class will get executed. So that's all about the struts. So first thing in the project that will get executed, you can see the project structure. As soon as your project is loaded, the first thing that is going to be executed is the deployment descriptor of the file. It is the file. So it will have all the servlet mapping action classes. You can see URL pattern we mentioned start.do. Why did we mention start.do? Because all your JSPs, in your JSPs we will mention the action tag like /login.do, /addEmployee.do, /viewEmployees.do. We will specify the action of each and every submit form of JSPs. So whatever the start.do request is coming, it will redirect that to the struts config file. So there the struts config file will take care of the action, and it will map the corresponding login action, login button to the login action class. Now this is the flow. You got it right? So first deployment descriptor will get executed. After that URL pattern we specified all start.do. Since all your JSP, let me show you the JSP also. Okay, for your simple understanding. Um, so you can see here the login.jsp form. You can see JSP form tag action equal to login.do, method is post. So when you submit it, the request will go like, it will go /do /login.do. It will go like that. Okay, you see here, let me explain the step by step also. So when you invoke your login.jsp, since it is having action equal to login.do, so the URL will contain /login.do. So immediately the struts deployment descriptor will execute the actions servlets. So it will go to the strutsconfig.xml, and there it will find /log, and for the corresponding slash it will get executed /login.do. So from there the login action will invoke the service class will invoke a DAO class will invoke database, and it will render the response. So this is how it happens. Got it right? So now fine, you understand how the request will be mapped to the corresponding action class through web.xml, deployment descriptor, and struts config file. Now I want to explain Spring application context.xml. What does this Spring will do? So here is the thing. All the dependency injections, inversion of dependency injection will happen using a Spring application context file. You need to understand struts config file will only be used for mapping the request to the corresponding action class and response to the corresponding JSPs. It will do nothing more than that except mapping the request to the action class and rendering the response to the corresponding JSPs. But if you see the Spring application context file, you can see here we are going to have a login action file. Okay, where is the login action? So login action file internally is auto wiring the user service class, right? So all the dependencies should be represented in the context.xml file. Or whatever the dependencies are there, whatever the attributes are there for particular class, all the session details. Okay, you need to specify the dependency injection details, how the objects are mapped, all the dependency management you need to handle through the application.context file. It is a single and centralized file where you specify all your dependencies, dependencies management, injection of the dependencies, attributes, all these things you will specify there. Okay, so for example, you see login action class internally using a user service. Let's go to the login action class code. So this is the employee object. Okay, and where is the login action class? So login action class, you see it is internally constructor injection. You can see we are using private user service, and we created user service object, and we are injecting its dependency using constructors setter injection public void set user service and user service, this dot user service equal to user service. This is setter injection, right? So this class is having a user service class as an internal dependent class, dependent object. So that is why in the Spring context, let me go to that file. I see this Spring context, you can see here. Okay, we have this login action class and class full path, class equal to com.app.action.login action, and property name equal to user service, reference is that object, and we already created a for user service there is an object ID. What is the bean ID? It is the user service, you see here, and we are injecting that object user service inside login action class, right? You're getting it right? So whatever the classes, interdependent classes that you are utilizing inside particular action class, you need to specify all those dependencies details in application context file. So let me explain it clearly again. Web.xml is the first starting point for any project. If you are using integration of the Struts, Spring and Hibernate along with the Java projects for Java, so it will redirect to corresponding action servlet. What is that action servlet it will take? It will take the strut config.xml file. Struts config.xml file only used for mapping your request to the corresponding action classes and responses to the JS piece. It will not do any dependencies and any configuration stuff. Only mapping the request and response to the corresponding action classes, corresponding JS piece. It is its responsibility. Spring context file responsibility is in managing the dependencies. You have created many classes and your classes are internally using other classes. You need to manage the dependencies. How the dependencies are injected, you need to specify in the form of XML. That is the job of Spring context XML. It doesn't need to be application.context XML. The file name can be anything. You can name anything. You just need to specify. By default, application context file you can see Spring context loader. If you change it, you need to modify the deployment descriptor accordingly. Okay. So these are the important thing. So the last config file, what is that? We explained as web.xml, struts config.xml. In the project structure, you can see first you need to webinf part. Okay, because from there the project initiation and flow happen. You don't need to look at all the code, how is the code and how the flow happens from the web. First you need to understand the deployment descriptor, strut config file, Spring application context file, Hibernate config file. Hibernate config file I will explain you. What is that Hibernate config file will do? You go to Hibernate config file, you can see here. You need to specify all the data source details. Okay, you need to specify the username, password for your data source, and the data sources are dialect details. If you are using MySQL dialect, you need to specify all the mappings of our classes, entities, session details. Hibernate is basically dealing with the object relational mapping framework, right? It maps your data to the POJOs. So you need to specify all your data source details, whatever the data source you are using. So that way in DAO classes, because you can see action class will invoke service class, and service class will invoke DAO class. From DAO class we will connect to database. Okay, let me show you simple DAO class. Why do we need this Hibernate class? Because we want to connect to the database, right? Hibernate is ORM framework basically. So without using direct hard-coded SQLs, you are just use Hibernate and you will actually query the data and map that data to a POJO, and from there you will manipulate the data. Connects Java to database and it maps the data to Java POJOs. Let me show you simple DAO example. Okay, see here we have a simple DAO class and DAO IMPL, and it is internally auto wiring session factory. And you see we created a session and we created a query, user query, session.create query. So it is Hibernate query. It is a Hibernate query, not a SQL query. So we are actually querying the details through Java class, through application layer. We are not doing it at data layer. We are not writing any SQL procedures, any SQLs. So that is the significance of this thing, because developer is having customer ownership of the queries. He can do anything he wants to do, right? In the code itself, he's just querying all the user details and is mapping the username, password. Is returning the unique result. You see, this user.DAO-IMPL will return the data. How you are using? See, this session factory is already having all the data source details, all your user database details. So when you call session.create, it will automatically connect to your database, and it will fetch that data. You can see here this Hibernate dot file. Go to Hibernate. So we created a where is this session factory. You can see under session factory tag, main tag is Hibernate config. After that, session factory tag, and inside that we specified all these details. So the session of the database will be available there. When you are auto wiring the session factory into DAO-IMPL, all your data source details, database details are available there. Simply you are creating a query. You see the query of type user and object equal to user, query object equal to session dot, what is session? We created a session factory, auto void there, and it will automatically establish the connection to the database. We provided all the database host details, username, password, all those details are available there. So it will create database part. So that is why we use this what is this Hibernate XML form. Now you got it right. Now go to the project structure. So as I told you, your code as per the project flow, standard flow, you will create all the action classes. If we are using Struts and Spring Right for your Java project first, and also Hibernate, first thing is you need to create action classes. And you already understood what is the web.xml, strut config file, Spring application context XML, Hibernate config. These 4 files you need to define them first. After defining these 4 files, and so you will have you need to create the respective Java code. You need to create all the action classes and all the service classes. Action class will invoke the service classes. Service class will invoke DAO class. So service classes generally will have service IMPL. See, whenever we talk about service and DAO class, first they should be interfaces. After that we will create a IMPL classes. So that is the project standard approach. We will not directly create a user IMPL. First you create a user service, then you create a user IMPL. When I say user service, it is a IMPL. IMPL class will be executed dynamically, right? So action class will invoke service class. Service class internally uses a DAO class. DAO class will connect to the database, and we map the data to Pojo. Right here, what we are doing, first we are logging in, and we are adding employee, view employee, update, delete employee. These are the actions. You can see that there. Okay, now web content, web content folder should have all the JSPs. Login.jsp, home.jsp, add employee, employee list.jsp. All these things will be there. Okay, all those things should be there. And now you go to here. And you see, I explained this. Now I want to explain this code. I think code, I hope it would be straightforward, since you already understood the flow, how the project flow will occur. Now you directly jump into the code. You can see user class is just a Pojo, employee is a Pojo, DAO layer you need to create just an interface, and IMPL you need to implement the session factory, right? You need to inject the session factory, and you can see all these details here. And employee Pojo, DAO Pojo, because when you get the response you need to map the response, right? And DAO IMPL, you can see employee IMPL, you want to save employee. Okay, you need to open a session and begin transaction, save employee object, you need to commit the transaction session, you need to close the session. These details are very important. You need to understand how you need to work with the Hibernate when you are dealing with these things. And you are going to add a public void update, employee update, delete. You see that there. Okay, because session, you need to understand session is whenever session started, whenever the It will initiate the transaction, it will update or delete or add anything, and after that you will commit it and session should be closed. There is a proper sequence of orders. And service layer, you need to create a service layer, because service layer will internally uses your DAO data access object layer. Okay, DAO means data access object, and simply we call it as a DAO. So if your user object is there, for every Hojo we may have a corresponding DAO. Whatever the DAO you want to, it's up to the requirement. Okay, whatever the DAO you want to connect to the data, you can name it as a DAO file, data access object layer, and the corresponding Hojo also you can map it. Okay, it is not necessary that every Hojo should have a corresponding DAO. You want to get a particular data and you want to map particular Hojo, you can define the DAOs actually. And employee service, employee NPL, right? And the Struts action class I explained, you will see action class. So action class should have action execute method. We are taking action mapping, action form, request response. You can see how it works, and we are see how we are forwarding the response here. Return mapping dot find forward of success. It will render the response to the success.jsp. If it is error JSP, it will render to the error.jsp. Okay, and user service we are executing user service dot login off. So from there the request code. Okay, we are passing user ID password. So these are very straightforward things, but when I started working, nobody explained these things. Nobody, not even single person explained how flow works for me. I struggled a lot to understand this project when I joined as an IT employee. So these things are very important. Whenever you are going to work on particular, you need to understand the basic flow. But nobody explained me these things, and those days even I don't know whether I could understand the things from YouTube or somewhere. If somebody has to explain these things properly, otherwise it would be very difficult for us. And KT sessions also, they don't give any KT sessions, because how employees thinks, right? If they share any knowledge, and it will be a problem for other employees. They always try to conceive, they want to keep the knowledge with them itself, because when they want to assess the performance for each and every employee, they have to decide the best performing employees. That is why most of the employees, they never share the real understandable knowledge to any employee. They want to keep it, they want to conceive it. And that is what it happened when I worked in a particular company. Nobody ever shared any knowledge, and they joined there, and nobody has given a proper KT. They'll just tell in high level things, and if you don't understand the basic flow, how it happens, why it happens, we need to understand the project structure first. This is how it happens. But if you do not understand, it will be very problem for you, and that is why I am explaining, so that you will not get any problems. And nowadays also the employees, they never share anything for 100% sure. They won't share the knowledge, they won't, nobody will explain to you what is it, and nobody will come forward to give a basic details. When you joined as a junior, first 6 months at least you need to understand it. Nobody will explain that. So they formally assign particular performance, but they don't give it, because if they share a complete knowledge, and you will be the competitive person to them. So there are kind of office politics will be there. They won't explain anything. Okay, either you go to the YouTube, or you can use a AI. Now AI came into the picture, then you don't need to be afraid, because AI will explain you everything, each and every step for you. If you do not understand any concept, you can just go to the ChatGPT or another AI framework. You can understand the things properly. It's going to replace those buffoons. You don't need to depend on those buffoons who are not willing to explain these things. Okay, so this is why you need to understand this IT, right? IT This Struts Spring and this Java integration project I explained that today. I hope this video would be useful for you. Thank you for listening.